everybody. Thanks for being here with me. Welcome to Charleston. Having a good conference so far?
So far, so good.
Yeah, everything good?
Absolutely.
Great, great. Well, I'm so glad that you're here. It's always nice to talk to our top up-and-comers a year later and kind of find out what y'all have been up to, because I'm always so impressed with everything that you're doing when I learn about you through the nomination process. And so I actually would love to hear about what's been going on in your career since last year when you were recognized as top up-and-comers for the Charleston Conference.
Who would like to start?
I can start, that's fine. So I've been, it's been fun. I've had a lot going on. I wasn't able to come to accept the award last year because I was about 3 weeks from having a baby. So
Congratulations.
Thank you. So I've been doing that, and then I've also had both of my employees, so I supervise a staff and a librarian, and they both moved on to other opportunities. Well, my staff person got his MLS and moved on to a professional librarian role, so I've been doing a lot of that, but I've also found some time to work on promoting ERs, so marketing and doing some promotion of our electronic resources. I actually just presented on that yesterday.
Oh, nice.
Good.
Nice.
Well, did.
Well, I have both, I guess, a professional and a personal update. So on the personal update, I decided to start a PhD program. So it'll be one class a semester. Thank you for a very long time coming, but it's going to be a degree in modeling and simulation. So I hope to integrate some of my loves in technology with information science, and who knows where else that will take me. And then on a professional standpoint, I've joined as an officer for IFLA, the International Federation of Library Associations, and it's to represent basically the United States American Library Association in the Science and Technology section. So I have a lot of work ahead of me in this coming year, for the next 5 years of service to them, but it's very exciting, and I think it's a pretty new thing for me for this last year.
So will you go to every IFLA conference then?
Oh, that's
Yes.
exciting.
And I was just in Greece in August,
Oh,
right?
wow.
That's right.
Yes, I had to jump ahead of the Hurricane Dorian that just kept on churning in Florida. So that was interesting, but at least for the next 4 years, because I already went to the last conference. So it's very exciting. I love to travel, and it's a great opportunity to meet other librarians and work on like a global scale. So
Nice.
yeah,
Well, that's exciting.
it is.
Well, I think since last year, my hair definitely is different, for sure. So, it was much shorter last year, but I did put a lot of hairspray today. No,
It's windy out.
Exactly. No, I actually moved to a new institution this year, actually.
okay.
So I'm now at Northwestern University.
right.
So yes, a
You'll
few.
need the hairspray with the wind.
Exactly, right by the lake, right? But no, so that's kind of a big change for me. A much larger institution to be working at, so which is kind of exciting. Thank you. And just like you, I've been actually in a doctorate program for seems like forever now.
It will.
So I'm still kind of jumping around between. I think I kind of completely scrapped my first topic. And starting from scratch on that one, so we will see how that goes. So
What's the new focus?
the new focus is really going to focus more on mid-career librarians and the way we kind of look at the way the organization works. So I'm kind of looking at it between a 4 frames kind of model between structural, political, what's the other 2? Symbolic, and I just blanked on the 4th one. But basically looking at those kind of framing of how we view organizations.
All right, wow.
Yeah.
Now, are you in a new role at the new institution, or is it
Yes.
similar to what you were doing before?
It's kind of a more specific this time around. I think the last previous institutions I was in, it was mainly a combination of collection development and acquisitions. So this time around, it's purely an acquisition. So I'm the assistant head of acquisitions and mainly managing and supervising our staff.
Great. Wow. All right. So a lot of things have happened in the last year. Then a lot more than just career changes
Right.
have been going on. So, I was saying last year when I was reading through the nominations, every year I'm impressed and humbled, and also I start feeling like I am moving farther and farther away from being early career, and now I'm really nested in mid-career, and I read about what early career professionals are doing. So, are there any new projects that you've started working on in the last year in your role in the library?
Well, honestly, I have not started a new project this time around. A lot of my work has been kind of really focusing on our operations. So I do feel like that I need to go through an entire cycle first before really jumping into a new project.
Yeah, I totally understand that. Yes, you got to get a lay of the land. I always say it takes a full fiscal year in a new position to really feel like you have your feet.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, I can take the next stab at it. Excuse me, I got here and I was a little under the weather, so I'm sorry if I have to clear my throat a little. Actually, at UCF, we've begun, although many other institutions have jumped into the kind of data management. We started a STEM boot camp that's called Research Data and Tools, and it basically covers kind of going through data visualization and assisting with like data management plans and literature review analysis, but from a STEM focus, since I work as a science librarian at my institution. And it's a kind of new thing for us, although other schools have been doing a lot in that area. So that's kind of a new project that we started. It's a 4-part workshop, 2 series in the fall, and 2 in the spring that's coming up. And so far it's been very well received. It's a lot of work, a lot of planning, and bringing in different experts, because we are not all those experts on all the different tools and the different aspects of data management. So it's definitely a new project.
I would love to take those workshops. Data visualization is something that I always feel like I want to learn more about, and that I just don't fit in to the day-to-day. So that's really impressive.
Yeah, we're trying to find our experts, because certainly the librarians are not the only ones that know how to use the tools. And so,
Cool. How about you?
That's great. So I've been, like I mentioned, I've been doing work on promoting ERs and really doing marketing plans for them, doing some in-depth analysis of pre and post-test surveys, looking at usage data over time and things like that, and seeing how our promotion efforts are actually impacting the use and the awareness of our e-resources. So we've also been, I think kind of a hot topic this year is accessibility, especially with a lot of the things that are going on in the legal system, pretty much, worldwide. So we've been slowly starting to move towards looking at some of our accessibility issues, and I think that'll be coming up in the next year or two for us.
Maybe a license review of some sort?
License reviews, pulling VPATs, reviewing VPATs, doing possibly some usability testing, some verification of those VPATs. Doing a lot of work. It's a lot. It's very intimidating. but
it's important.
But it's so important, and I feel very strongly about it. I have a teaching background, and so I understand the need really for teaching in different ways and providing resources in different ways to students. And so I feel very strongly that everything we provide needs to be usable for everyone. And it shouldn't be a delay, because that can delay their education, and that's not fair to them.
you're right.
That's got to be a huge advantage, coming at it from a teaching background, and really placing the user at the center of these considerations, as opposed to, we just need to get these, we need to just get VPATs because we need to get VPATs. It's about the actual experience behind it.
And I think everything I really try and do, I always try and focus back on those students. So whether I'm negotiating a contract and I'm, going back and forth with a vendor on contract terms, or I'm negotiating price, or I'm talking about accessibility and usability, really in the back of my mind, it's always about the students. It's always what is going to be best for my students. And our library is partly funded, our collections budget is partly funded on a student use fee. And so I feel really strongly that we need to use their money wisely, because they're going to be paying this off for so long, most of them, and I really want to benefit them.
That's great.
Yeah.
So one of my favorite questions is always, if money and resources were not an issue, you know, the exciting question. What are some projects or research that you would want to work on if the sky was the limit?
Want me to tackle that one first?
Sure, go ahead.
Well, I'm a lover of all emerging technologies, and I would love to see the library, especially in an academic institution, be a hub for that, whether it's an innovation hub, a maker space. I mean, I would love to come up with another word, something that kind of is mind-blowing, but we have a great collaboration between like our business librarians, our patent and trademark resource center librarian, our engineering and science librarians, and kind of bringing together entrepreneurship and, like, you know, being a place of a center for information on all the kinds of resources our institution offers and support for new business ideas that students develop either prior to industry or, you know, just in development, different aspects of you know, the process, and using all of that information. And not a lot of people understand how to search for patents or why that's important, especially like in an engineering design type of showcase or a class that they might take in that. And so I would love to see the library be all of those things and have all the technology, have all the you know, kind of like a sandbox, but I don't really know what that word is. But if money was no object and no issue and no, you know, no administrators have to get involved to say we can purchase this and handle that and hire this many people. Yeah, so I don't know what the word is, but all things, you know, innovation, art, creativity, technology, and entrepreneurship. So.
Okay.
I like sandbox, really. You know, you're in there, you're just playing around.
Yeah. But that, you know, that's used. I'm like, I want a new term. I don't know what that is. But that's the thing. We'd have to find somebody, you know, we could pay with no money as a limit to come up with a new inventive term. So
Maybe that's a contest, like a student contest or something.
yeah. So that would be my project.
Exciting.
It would be.
Yeah.
But, you know, we always have caps on our budgets and on our, you know, on funding. But, you know, sky's the limit on that one.
Well, for me, it's probably more on looking at, really, I think, the impact of diverse library collections. I do feel like we talk about diversity in collections, diversity in libraries. However, I feel like we're missing a little bit in terms of how we do evaluation and assessment. So I don't really know how we would do that. So I think that's kind of, you know, one of the things that I've been kind of really thinking about in terms of how we do those kind of evaluation. I think there was a session, I think it must have been yesterday or the other day, talking about library assessment and diversity. However, I miss it because there's so many sessions around the same time that, you know, that's kind of like, oh, which one should I go to? But yeah, I feel like that's something that we're kind of missing right now, and I think that just really takes time to kind of formulate everything and really come up with something impactful.
If you figure something out, please let me know, because this is something that we, I think all of us in collections really grapple with is, you know, the work of diversity and inclusion is something that should be infused across all areas of library work. And so, you know, collections are a service, collections are an object, and how can we get a sense of whether or not we're providing the best and the most diverse collections, and then how do we know that? You know, how do we get feedback on that, and not just from our vendors either. I think our vendors can help, and I would love our vendors to help more with that. But I think it has to again be a user-focused.
Right,
issue.
exactly. And I think actually this year, I guess it is a kind of a project of mine in a way, but the idea of looking into belonging in library collections. So that's kind of what I've been kind of thinking more and more, and maybe hopefully write something more about it.
Great. Yeah, I want to read that. Let me know when that comes out. So I think I feel like a bit of a broken record here, but looking at accessibility and being able to, if I could be trained personally, I would love to become an accessibility expert and be able to actually go through the training myself rather than farming it out to an outside company. I would like to learn that myself so that I can better understand both the users and the technology behind it. That would be kind of my goal. If they could just send me away, you know, take away all my other responsibilities, and if I had all the time in the world to go get all this extra training, that would be kind of my goal, so that I could then go back in evaluate our resources, look at how we can improve, look at maybe stopgaps, and better communicate with vendors what our actual needs are.
So, time and money are factors, of course, and if they weren't, I think that these are things that we could get done more quickly, perhaps, but this really sounds like you're on the right track and you already have a vision for what you want to do, and so even with time and money as factors, I hope that you take these ideas further, and I hear more about your sandbox in particular. Yeah. So did anybody catch the opening keynote, Brewster Kahle's keynote this year? No? Okay. So he asserts that what citizens, journalists, and policymakers need is a canonical source of trusted information. I'm interested to hear if you believe that libraries are or should be leaders in this area, and if you feel that your work in libraries allows you to make a difference in this area.
So I think whether or not we want to be, I think we already are. We started as kind of gatekeepers of information, and we, for the history of libraries, that's kind of what we've been. We've already been, okay, the library is where you go for the trusted information. The library is where you go for all of this. And so I think we're already there. So we have to kind of figure out how to work with it now. Excuse me. I also think that I do this daily in my work. We do a lot of evaluation of our resources, and so I spend a lot of time looking at, okay, is this quality information? Is there bias in this? I mean, there's always going to be some level of bias, but how can we balance that? Or do we have another resource that maybe balances or counteracts that bias? And so really trying to look at a holistic collection that we have, and making sure that it's as trusted as can be, and at least shows both perspectives. Whether you believe in one perspective or not, it's hard as a librarian. There are certain things that I don't agree with in the world, and I'm like, we shouldn't collect that. And I know it's so hard, and I'm like, no, we need to provide both points. And it's actually, I've talked to some historians who have told me it's really, really important to have the counter voice in whatever it is as you do historical research. And so I try and keep that in the back of my mind as I'm like, all right, fine.
That just really warms my heart, honestly, because with all the news stories about some things are kind of disappointing when you see that librarians in some cases really aren't adhering to this policy or at least spirit or value of providing diverse viewpoints, whether we agree with them or not. So I'm so glad that just warms my little librarian heart to hear that.
I'm kind of glad that Allyson brought it out, that we already are. I haven't really thought of it as much. It's like, are we kind of saviors in a way? But I like that you brought that up, right? And I don't want to be thinking that I'm a savior. So,
no. I don't want to be exactly, but I'm there. So.
But with what Allyson is saying, I really kind of like that. Partly because I think what the move is more now that I think that we should be doing probably is more to really teach more about critical thinking and to look at and to kind of those, because we have the resources, we have the collections, but I think we probably need to push more towards how do we evaluate those resources and think about critically look at them and kind of apply them to what we're doing.
And understanding the contextual information around that piece of information, that book, that archival piece, whatever it is, because sometimes that context can provide a lot of extra information.
Right, exactly.
Do you feel that students do this already in their, as personal consumers of information? Are students now, in particular, traditional students, 18-year-olds, born digitals, they've probably had phones for most of their lives. They're doing this all the time on their own. If they want to check the weather, if they want to check, sports scores, if they want to check movie times or something. I don't know, do they go to movies anymore? I don't even know if they do.
I haven't.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So they're doing this already. How do they know that they can trust something that they're just information they're finding as personal consumers? And then how can those principles behind that they're not even maybe aware of be translated into, you know, academic research. This is just something that I'm always kind of kicking around as well.
I would say that I'm not sure they all are, and I think definitely the library as a place to help educate on what is trusted information, a place for them to go to get access to it, to understand kind of like the historical, archival preservation of the information. But I think it depends. I mean, and even within libraries, we were talking about the librarian role, and you know, as we go into our education as you know, our masters in library and information science or masters of information, depending on what school you went to and how it's looked at now, there is that discussion of those values of what we uphold. But then we have library staff as well, and students working at our institutions, and sometimes their values don't always translate to that bigger perspective. So I think, just like students, we might even need to, you know, educate and train our staff, continue professional development in this important role of saviors or gatekeepers of that trusted information, and how to keep evaluating those resources. I think I have 2 young children, 7 and 9 years old. They're already having to do contextual, you know, basically citing, right? Text-based, you know, information that they get from books and that kind of thing, which is the initial citing aspect of doing research. But where do they get the information? Who's teaching them? At what level are their parents or the people that are helping them with their schoolwork understanding and evaluating resources? And I think we still have to be very creative in the way that we teach that and how we, you know, come across to students, because I'm not sure, I don't know, I don't buy that they all
I don't know that they all do.
or that they even really care. I don't think that they might find it as critical for them to corroborate facts by looking for 2 other, you know, consecutive statements that say the same thing. But that's just my take. I don't know about you two.
Well, you did bring up the MLS or the MLIS, and you're right, it's different, you know, everywhere. Where I got mine, it was the MLIS, and you know, sometimes I've seen it as MLS. And so there's a lot of chatter in the library profession about the value of the MLS or MLIS. And I know that at my library at the University of Florida, we regularly hire librarians who do not have an MLS or MLIS. In fact, they have a PhD in a subject specialty. They are, you know, very authoritative researchers in an area, and so they learn the work of librarianship on the job, which I think in some cases makes us wonder, well, what did I learn in grad school then? If I could have just learned this on the job, what was I doing in my grad program? So what advice would you give to students or professionals who are interested in careers in library and information science around that degree program?
I think for me, it's about flexibility, to be able to adapt to different situations. I think to me that's very important as a kind of a skill that you learn in graduate school. One of the things that I appreciated about the program that I was in was that, you know, maybe we had 2 that's really just the core program or courses that you take. The rest you can kind of make your own way of, and I kind of think of it as like make your own adventure in a way, right? So
I like that.
you're right. So I took different courses and different kind of avenues to really kind of learn what I want to do in a way. So I took probably one of the most important things that I learned is towards in community informatics, in terms of just looking at how we work with people, how we engage with the community. So to me, that was a very important course and a very important kind of skill that I learned that I still use now in just working with you know, my colleagues, working with different people. So
Oh, great.
to me, that was great.
Good. Success story there. Yeah.
I agree. I think there's a lot of value to be had in the MLS. I definitely learned some skills, like you mentioned, that I still use today. One of the things that I use, so even though I'm not a front-facing librarian, one of the things that I use is reference interview skills. And so I use that internally. I occasionally use that with a vendor. You know, it's really applicable in a lot of scenarios. So I do think there are really some skills in there that you learn and that really help you move forward. But I have found in hiring librarians and staff, those who have experience in libraries, whether it's volunteering, whether it's as a student worker, paraprofessional, whatever it is, having even just a little bit of experience can go a long way in helping you understand the entirety of the library. I started out in libraries as a public-facing paraprofessional at a small Air Force Base library, and so I had a very different view of libraries and what was needed and things like that, but it's really helped me inform my position now in collecting and e-resources and things like that, because I was able to see how all these decisions affect the patron. So by having kind of that breadth of experience, I was really able to, I feel like I'm better able to do my job now. So I would really strongly encourage any, student looking at an MLS, absolutely get that. It will make your life a lot easier. You will learn a lot of skills that are really important, but get some kind of experience, and not necessarily in one niche area that you want to go into. That can be very helpful, but it can also kind of limit your vision when it comes to your career.
That's a good point.
What's interesting, I was actually going to say that I would recommend students to find a niche, only because it drives their passion and kind of fuels like where their direction might go. And maybe because I'm a subject specialist, I feel like having something that kind of sets you aside helps to kind of define where you might go. So, but perhaps having a niche, but not so specific that you get kind of, stuck. So for me, like pursuing, say, GIS technology, so looking at geographical information systems, how can work that you learn to do in an area that could be beneficial to libraries, be beneficial to all researchers and all kinds of disciplines, but to have somebody that has that specific. I think that's one of the things that a lot of university libraries are now hiring, are these researchers who are really good with GIS or with data management, planning and all those type of tools, and they're coming into the librarianship role. So perhaps if future librarians to be are going through school, they can kind of start from that and kind of bring that in. So perhaps we're getting librarians who are skilled and trained in our field, as well as learning that those niche markets and understanding of those like research topics are important too, and kind of bringing them both together, as opposed to us, either you're just a librarian and you've got the stuff from grad school, or you're a researcher coming into the librarian role. I'd like to kind of see us branch out a little bit and to get into more research, and perhaps getting some people who are more interested in research that want to work in libraries, perhaps get some of the skills that we might have had in grad school.
I really love that our profession is unique in the sense that some of the staff and librarians I work with have had so many different roles, even in the same library. They've been there for 30 years, but they've worked in ILL, and then they worked at, the reference desk, and now they're working in e-resources. And so you really, there's so much opportunity to move around and get a sense of expertise in so many different areas, and then you're bringing a perspective to that new role that someone else might not have, and so we all just end up working better together.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
What excites you about the future of libraries?
There's really like no end for me. The sky's the limit. If you have all the funding, if you have really supportive, inventive, and innovative leadership, if you've got really great young people and people who are constantly, evolving in their ideas, there really is there's no end to where the possibilities could be. I've seen libraries change since I was a child, and even in going to college, I'm like, oh, when I used to see cafes spring up in libraries, I'm like, what is a cafe doing in the library? They're going to dump stuff all over the books, or they're gonna, you can't open a pack of Doritos and eat it in the library. Now, of course, that's what our spaces are like, and so there's just been so much evolution in what we do, and I really don't see there's an end to that,
Right.
That's what's exciting to me.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of in the same kind of thinking as you, because the more I think about it, it's really driven about the way our users are, like how they kind of interact with the library. I kind of think about it also that the diversity of our users now will really change the way we, I think, work with the future of libraries, the way we collect materials, the way we provide resources or services for that. So yeah, to me that's exciting, and to me the future of libraries really, I guess maybe because I just keep thinking about this, is that the diverse population that we have will really have an impact on the future.
I agree. I think that's really exciting. It's also a little scary
Yeah.
because it means more change, and we go through
Right.
change all the time, and change is both super exciting and super scary. And I think it's okay to kind of acknowledge that it's like, whoa, that's a great big world out there. Like we have so many places we can go, and it can be scary and a little intimidating,
Right.
but it's also really exciting to be able to say, hey, we can do GIS, we can serve all of our diverse populations, we can look at accessibility, we can look at all these different things. And I think it's really exciting that we don't just stamp books anymore.
Yeah.
We're not just book stampers. We are so much more than that, and that's really, really exciting to me.
And we're going to learn as we go too.
Absolutely.
You know, when we talk about change, I know that personally, when going through something like, an ILS migration, for example, which is really, it's revolutionary and it's disruptive change, it seems to be that I think, what's the right way to do this? And there's not always a right way, and that's a very uncomfortable space to be in when you're just flowing along in the stream and there isn't an exact correct path to follow. I think that can be exciting and liberating, but also really scary.
Right.
So, yeah.
Lots of challenges.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
we always have to work through those.
Yes.
So my favorite question, because I get to get a reading list from y'all, is what are you reading at the moment?
So you're not gonna like my answer. Basically, emails.
We don't have time to
Kind of agree with that.
I'm kidding. No, I actually, and it's not much better of an answer, but anything on Kindle Unlimited or anything $2 or less on Kindle.
All right.
I like those quick, easy, just kind of fluffy reads. I do a lot of intense thinking at work, so when I go home and get the kid to bed, I'm like, all right, I just need to zone out for a little while.
Yeah.
So I just do just anything on Kindle Unlimited. You name it, I'm reading it.
That sounds great. I totally agree. That escapism and that ability to fall into something that isn't just going to make me feel like I'm doing mental Olympics is really important.
Yes.
How about you?
Oh gosh. So this is where I'm gonna sound like a terrible librarian, right? Well, I'm not a big reader.
Okay.
So let's put it out there. So I'm not a big reader.
That's okay. I often say the same thing.
So for the most part, I think the last time that I had a really kind of good book was when I was working in an institution where I would have to drive to the suburbs, so drive about an hour. So I would just listen to audiobooks, right? So that was good. But nowadays I have not had a chance to read. So let's put it that way.
You're reading your PhD
I'm reading.
That counts. That counts.
I'm reading
Yeah.
articles. So that's probably the thing that I do the most: reading
right.
articles, just newspapers and all of those things. So it's a little bit, because a lot of people really ask me this kind of questions, like, oh, what kind of books do you read? But the answer is that I'm not really a big reader. So
Nothing wrong with
which,
that.
I
I think we need a new conference badge that says like not really a big reader.
Exactly, that would be good.
Don't ask me about what I'm reading.
Well, I actually might have something for you to add on your list. It depends. And I don't know, I'm a little crazy, I guess, with the whole mental, Olympics thing you were talking about. When I do get a chance to read, because I'm kind of like you, I'm constantly just doing so much with all the things you do in research, and especially when you're going for a higher level degree. If I am going to read, I want it to be something that's stimulating or something that's progressing my future outlook on things. So I actually picked up something recently and had it for quite some time. It's a very ambitious read. It's quite a lengthy book. It's called Enlightenment Now: The Case for Reason, Humanism, Science, and Progress. It's by Steven Pinker. He's a cognitive psychologist and linguist, and so it's an ambitious read. So mental Olympics, as you say, but it's interesting because I have a background in religious studies and in Asian studies, so that's where the Enlightenment part came in. I was like, ooh, this looks like an intriguing title, and I'm interested in kind of like where he basically has 3 chapters on the Enlightenment values he feels are under threat right now. And the book is only a little bit over a year old, so science, reason, and humanism are the ones that he believes are being under threat based on religious fundamentalism, political correctness, and postmodernism. So anyhow, if you'd like to look that up, that's kind of what it is. It's about 495 pages, and I'm just at the very beginning. So anyway, we can maybe check next year and see if I finished.
Maybe next year we'll do video book reviews, and we can get
cool.
you to review it for us, because that sounds really interesting.
Oh my goodness, I'm sure that would be a dissertation on all of its own, I think so. But
So finally, what are some of your favorite things about the Charleston Conference?
For me, it's really about networking with people. Right. So I think that in a lot of conferences, that's usually where I get ideas and how we kind of discuss what's going on, what different projects you're working on. So to me, that's really kind of a rewarding thing, and it really helps that also this conference is very focused on what we do. So it's really geared towards collection development, acquisitions, and all of those things. And that's more kind of, I guess there's more of a main focus to really discuss with. So to me, that's a great thing. And the people that are here to make it more interesting.
I agree. It's about catching up with what people are doing, seeing what progress they've made. Oh, I saw your presentation a couple years ago. How are y'all doing on this? Things like that. I love being able to see the progress of other people's careers and other people's projects and things like that, because I can always take a tidbit, at least a little tidbit, back to my institution and do something better. Yeah.
Well, first off, it's Charleston. I've never been here, and I've been very impressed with the food and just the quaintness of the town and the history. And it's a very intimate, kind of experience. I mean, there's a lot of diversity in programs.
Right.
There's a, kind of unique conversation that happens with our vendors, and there's just a different kind of, at least for me, the kind of conferences I go to. It's just a smaller setting, but a lot of diverse programming, really informative and informational, and it's just a quaint setting, which makes it kind of, an interesting. And then definitely the networking. I mean, I think at one time I had 4 messages from people texting me where are you? Where are you going? I'm like, I'm overwhelmed. It's supposed to be yeah. So the networking I think is amazing, and it's put into a setting to where it's a much smaller kind of venue to where you can actually connect with everybody.
Yep.
Right.
So.
I agree. I do like the intimacy, the small town feeling. It has kept, this is the 39th year of the conference, and it still has that grassroots spirit behind it that, it just started with a small group of people who wanted to get together and talk about issues and acquisitions. So, thanks so much for talking to me this morning. This has been terrific. Y'all are wonderful, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the time here in Charleston.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Stop everybody.
Yeah.